Hello and welcome to episode 248 of Page One, the Writers' Podcast. I'm Tarek.
I'm Marco, and thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing careers, find out how they got into the industry, and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And we've got a huge back catalogue of great writers, authors, screenwriters, comic writers, and much more. So please do check that out. But at the moment, we are doing a little run of industry episodes, we call them, speaking to people, I guess, on the other side of the fence, through that magical doorway. You've written your book, but now you want it to get published, so you need to hear from agents, editors, and that sort of thing. So that's who we've been speaking to over the past few weeks, and we've done this before in short bursts as well, so you can find those older episodes there. But this week, we are speaking to one of Scotland's leading literary agents.
That's right. This week, we're chatting with the wonderful Jenny Brown of Jenny Brown Associates, which is a literary agency based here in our hometown of Edinburgh. And as Marco says, probably one of the leading agencies and agents in Scotland. And like many of the agents that we've chatted to so far in this run and in the past, very interesting. Loads of insight about what the day-to-day life is like as an agent in terms of, submissions and dealing with edits and contracts and publishers and the ins and outs of what she looks for and what turns her off and what kind of, what's on her list and what she is looking for. And I think the thing that jumped out at me when we were chatting with Jenny was her, I wouldn't say focus, but her kind of, she really likes the idea of a book being part of a series. So for her,
that's
series, novel with the potential for more books after that, etc., something which she thinks is a really good thing. So it's interesting that a lot of people, I think we've seen before, would kind of say you don't want to be over egging the pudding and saying you've got a 5-book series lined up in it. But I think showing you've got a book, a crime book especially,
with series potential.
Series potential.
That's the key catchphrase to put in your query letter. Not saying it's part one of a 15-book series.
Exactly.
And the real exciting stuff happens in book 4.
Yeah. Book 1 to 3 is all world building, but it really takes off when you get to book 4.
That's not the way to do it. It's a great chat, so we'll get straight into it after a quick advert for a writer's notebook. If you're listening to this, if you're watching it, you don't need to listen to that advert, although if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll probably get another advert. But just to say as well, there is some background noise from Jenny's recording at her end at the start. It's not very loud, but I just wanted to mention that in case you're wondering if that's in your house, if you're listening to it on your headphones or anything. And we will be back at the end of the podcast with a bit more chat and to let you know about next week's guest.
But for now, on with the podcast.
When we have writers on the podcast, my opening question is always, did you always want to be a writer? But did you always want to get into publishing generally?
Do you know, my first ambition was to be the editor of Puffin Books. And I must have been about 10 years old. And I don't know if you remember, but you're both too young. But Puffin Books, when they started, I think Wurzel Gummidge was the first one. And on the sort of frontispiece was Puffin Books, editor, K. Webb. And I thought, what a fantastic job. And from that moment on, I thought, that's what I want to do. So I must have had, and then I took a sort of a sideways turn, but then came back to the world of books.
Because you've been, looking at your kind of bio and your history, you've had a really eclectic route through a whole bunch of interesting places. Head of literature at the Scottish Arts Council, presenter of book programmes for Scottish television, founder director of Edinburgh Book Festival, former chair of Bloody Scotland Book Festival. It seems like you've always been involved in books, but not necessarily the agent stuff, but you've always been involved in a whole bunch of different ways, representing books and people and stuff.
Yeah, when people ask me what's the best route to get into agency work, it's not, I wouldn't recommend probably my route because I spent 20-something years in the subsidised sector of literature, at the Edinburgh Book Festival and at Scottish Arts Council. And then, in my early 40s, I thought, can I take what I've learned from the subsidised sector and apply it to agency work? And when I was at the Arts Council, I was there 6 years as head of literature. Probably every week I was phoned up by different writers in Scotland saying, could I recommend an agent?
Okay.
And at that point, there was really only Giles Gordon from Curtis Brown, who had an office in Edinburgh, and he was just about the only agent up here. And I started to think, could I, remain in Scotland representing Scottish writers, and I could be the one who's doing the travelling to London or Frankfurt or whatever else. Mm-hmm. So it was quite a big step back then into the unknown. I obviously, they had a nice pensionable job and I had 4 boys at home. Was I going to take that step?
Yeah.
But I'm really glad I did.
And that was back in 2002, was it, when you set up Jenny Brown Associates? Yeah. And you say it was a big step. I mean, obviously you'd been in the industry, but you hadn't been working as an agent before that. So, was it a quick learning curve that you had to get started with?
Yes, I mean, I took some courses in London on contracts, negotiating rights, etc. But I would really recommend anybody who wants to be an agent to work in publishing first, probably. And there are openings as agents assistants, and that's obviously a really good way of doing it as well. But I suppose what I did have was a very thorough knowledge of Scottish writing, and so the context in which writers were writing, I knew a lot about, and all over Scotland, not just the Central Belt.
Yeah. So when you first started out back in 2002, how big was the company? How many clients did you have when you first got going?
Well, I called myself Jenny Brown Associates. It was a misnomer. There was just me. But I quickly managed to get a network of sub-agents. So, we work with people, with sub-agents in France and Germany and Italy and all over, so that, try and get our authors' work widely distributed and hopefully with deals elsewhere. And then a few years in, I was joined by Mark Stanton, Stan, who had worked at Canongate and had a real interest in an area that not many agents had an interested in then, which was sports writing. So he made that, a really successful niche for himself. But I mean, then he also very successfully agented Paul Torday with Salmon Fishing in the Yemen, which sold loads of rights and then became a feature film. And then shortly after that, Lucy Jukes, who had worked for Bloomsbury, came to join me doing children and young adult work. So, we're now back to Stan, then set up North Agency 7 years ago. But we're back to 3 agents as well now, because Lisa Heighton, who had been publisher at Two Roads, Hachette, came to join us 3 or 4 years ago. I should remember this. And she's based in London, but working as an associate agent. So yes, 3 of us still.
Right.
Excellent. And when back in 2002, in terms of submissions and stuff like that, were you still getting, was it mainly postal submissions that you were getting through the door? Then?
Every day the postman came with this huge pile of jiffy bags, and environmentally, you look back and think, how wrong was that? But there's a lot of it was a lot of paper to be getting through, and yes, I took on quite a few students from the publishing courses who helped me sift. But after a while, you realise you've just got to do the reading yourself, because it has to be that immediate reaction between, my eyes and whatever the author's writing. Yeah. So we don't have outreaders now. It's we do it all ourselves.
I mean, that leads us on to the question that a lot of people will be watching or listening for, which is, what are you looking at when you get that query through the door. You've got your, the nowadays, presumably email, you've got the covering email, you've got the pages, you've got a synopsis normally, I think, as well. What are they all equal in importance to you? What do you look at first? That sort of thing.
Well, now, of course, it is email, and what I'd hope to see is sort of a really something that's going to really pique my attention in the cover letter, that's going to make me want to really click on those attachments and read those opening pages.
Yeah.
But it's also, I know we're focused on crime writing here. There's all sorts of reasons why it's difficult to take on crime writers when you both know what a crowded field it is. Mm-hmm. And how many more detectives could we have in Edinburgh? How many more can we have in Glasgow? And there has to be something really different about the pitches for books based, a series, it's a potential series based there, when there are already so many. And you can just imagine me going to a publisher saying, I've got the new police procedural novel based in Edinburgh. And they're going to say, well, we've already got, all these others. How on earth can we sell those? Yep. So there has to be something really distinctive. And thinking about those crime novels that I've, taken on, David Bishop with his brilliant series set in Florence at the time of the Medicis, something really different and distinctive. A number of years ago was Hania Allen, who's based in Cooper, and she has a series called the Polish Detective Series, which Constable published, and that was a Polish woman detective based in Dundee. That that immediately is a really different offering. Lynn Anderson's just about to next year will be bringing out a brand new series alongside her Rona McLeod series, and that's going to be based in Orkney.
Right.
So there has to. I think now it's much harder for crime writers because it's a crowded field. Obviously, it's hugely popular, and thank goodness in Scotland we love our crime writing. Yeah. We love it even more than anybody else in the UK proportionately. But it has to have something now really different about it.
And when you get the submission through, when you've got the cover letter and the sample chapters and the synopsis, and you're reading it, and you're kind of asking yourself, what's unique about this take? What's the angle here? What else are you looking at? What do you put the most importance on? Would three opening chapters that don't quite work, but you love the writing and you love where the story goes in the synopsis? Would that pique you, or is there things that would turn you off straight away when you look at a submission?
I think the writing has to be really strong in whether you're going to call it, it's literary fiction or reading group or commercial. It has to be really strong in that field, and the characters have to, you have to really engage with them, even though you don't like them. They've got to intrigue you, especially for crime, because I don't tend to do much standalone psychological thrillers, just a few of those. I'm really the crime writers I represent have series. Mm-hmm. So and I want to know, is this a character that is going to sustain a series? What sort of ideas does the author have for the narrative arc? What are we going to find out about this character now? And what's going to be intriguing enough to make readers want to know in book 2, book 3, book 4, whatever, to want to continue with the series. So that's quite it's a high bar for an emerging writer to get into this, and I think it's really worth thinking about that narrative arc from the beginning, as they're writing that and pitching that first novel.
Okay. So you would actually want them to say, this has serious potential here, etc., etc. Yeah. Okay. And in terms of submissions, numbers of queries that you're getting, what are you getting per week roughly?
Well, at the moment, the last number of months, our lists have been closed.
Right.
And I know that's deeply frustrating to new writers. But the reason is that we are already so hard pressed with the writers we've already taken on. And I think publishing has changed a lot. And I feel that more work has landed on the desks of agents as a result of those changes. There's been a huge number of editorial changes in the big publishing houses in London. And that's a very unsettling time for a writer. And, now more than ever, probably the most significant long-term relationship a writer's going to have is with their agent. Obviously, great if it can be with your editor, but because of these changes. And so I love reading new work, but I don't feel confident about giving it the time it deserves when we're so busy. However, we did, as an agency, we've run this twice, run an award for debut writers over the age of 50. And we ran it for the first time in 2023, and we ran it again this year. When we ran it for the first time, the reason being that we were so aware that the bar is even higher, or it can seem even higher for older writers entering into publishing. And there's so many good reasons why writers don't get going until they're over 50, with careers, with caring responsibilities, etc. And they've got, lifetime of experience to offer on the page. So that first year, we thought we'd never run it before. We thought maybe have a couple of hundred entries. Well, The Guardian picked it up and The Observer, and we have over 1,700 entries.
Wow. Brilliant.
Honestly, it was myself and Lisa Heighton who were reading all the entries, in which we'd asked for, I think, the first 5,000 words. Tell us why you're writing this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about yourself. So that did dominate our workload for quite long. But we had we got down to a shortlist of 6, and then our winner, Glenys Virgo, it was a novel set in Bologna about a young woman who wants to be a tailor, and she can't. And it was, she had a wonderful story about what had inspired her. So out of the 6 finalists, I think 3, possibly almost 4, have now got publishing deals. Glenys has been published. She was historical novel of the month, The Times, this time last year, and we've sold rights in that one. And another shortlistee was Cresta Downing, and her book, you'll understand about me looking for something distinctive and different about a crime novel. She's writing historical crime, and it's set in Lindisfarne. And it's about a female scribe who goes across to the island and starts scribing for the monks. And that's been picked up by Bedford Square Press, and it's she's got a 2-book deal, and it'll be published next July. Okay. So that's her, yeah. So although we haven't been open to general submissions, we have very much been reading in that category. It's been open to anybody in the UK.
And see, when you get those submissions, like, you have those 1,700 submissions come in, and they're 5,000 words each, and you think, you've got this pile to go through in front of you. I'm assuming you must have to make almost a kind of snap decision, I suppose. You're reading the pages through. Is the writing connecting with you? Is the voice grabbing you from the start? What were you looking for in that kind of opening bit of text? What would put you off, and what are you hoping to get excited about?
I suppose something really fresh and different that I felt I hadn't read before. Something, but also we were looking for work that we knew we could sell.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So and we had put on the sort of guidelines for the award that we're not agents that are known for dealing with science fiction or fantasy. Mm-hmm. And we did get quite a lot of that. Okay. Funnily enough, we had, maybe it's the age group, maybe it's just in the air, but quite a lot of the entries seem to start with a funeral.
All right, okay.
Is there something about
That's
us being over
interesting.
50? Anyway, but I suppose a funeral, which then leads to a revelation.
Yeah.
Once somebody's died, and that was the sort of trigger for that didn't put me off, by the way, but just for whatever was happening there. Quite a few of with characters who got camper vans.
Right,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
interesting.
Yeah. So
As in able to roam around and explore the Highlands.
but really, on the whole, very varied entries. Quite a high proportion of historical fiction.
Right, okay. That's interesting because
Yeah.
that in particular is interesting because, certainly from speaking to other authors and editors and stuff, it seems that historical is a bit, unless it's in a specific time period, it seems to be a bit of a tougher sell at the moment in terms of the market. Have you been finding that yourself? Or, obviously the market goes up and down in terms of in trends and all of that sort of thing, but...
Funny enough, I was asking a publisher about this yesterday, saying, what she felt about the market for historical fiction. And she said, well, on the whole, that she wouldn't expect to have that as pitched first of all about the whatever novel it was.
Right. Okay.
She would be expecting me to say, it's a literary novel. It happens to be based in. So I thought that was interesting. That's... So, and of course, you do get some publishers who are absolutely focused on historical fiction, but it's story first, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. I suppose it's sorry.
It happens to be set in a particular period.
Yeah. So it's more what the hook is, or what type of novel it is, etc. As opposed to purely being the hook being the fact it's set in 1800s or something.
Yeah.
And
I have heard about historical fiction, though, that that some periods of history are less attractive to publishers. Anything with too much mud in it.
I do find that it's publishing is known for being a bit of a risk averse in terms of what it is willing to take a risk on, I guess, in terms of publishing. And it does seem like, if you write World War II fiction, probably has a better chance of being published than something, as you say, set in the 1200s or something like that, unless it's around a specific character. But it is not just in terms of historical fiction, but you often, publishers, you hear this saying, they want the same but different sort of a thing, and it's knowing how different they want before. If it's too different, it seems that they tend to veer away from that, unless someone else takes that risk and it's successful, and then suddenly there'll be a bit of interest in that sort of thing. So yeah, as in terms of authors and what they're writing, do you think that they should be paying attention to trends and the market and things like that, especially given how slow publishing is in terms of selling books and stuff like that?
It's so hard for new writers to be looking at trends, because by the time they've written their novel, that trend may well have gone. Very early in my agenting career, I had a writer who had one of those micro histories, non-fiction. You remember, there was eels and there was coffee and do you remember those? Just singles subject. And I had one of those, and it was, the trend had gone by the time we came to pitch it. So although it was deemed to be a good manuscript, it publishers just felt that bus had left.
Yeah.
Does that mean that? Sorry.
No, I was going to say, does that mean that there's an element of luck in terms of submitting the right book at the right time to you, and you doing the same to the publishers type thing?
Yeah. I think there's a huge amount of luck.
Okay.
And where a gap opens up on a publisher's list, that they've got room for something.
Yeah.
Many times I've submitted something to a publisher and have that message. I really love this. I just don't have room for it on my list.
Yeah.
This publisher I was talking to yesterday, 2026 is completely full up. Late 27, they have gaps.
Right. Okay.
That they're looking for.
I mean, presumably then, I was going to ask about that, in terms of like your day-to-day as an agent. Obviously, there's dealing with existing clients, reading, presumably, new stuff when your list is open and things like that. But also, are you in regular contact with editors trying to find out what they're looking for and all of that sort of thing? Is that part of the role as well?
Yes, yeah. And so and London Book Fair is a fantastic time for us. To have, multiple appointments with editors and just get a sense of what they're looking for, as well as, just going to see them regularly, mostly in London. And Zoom has also made it very easy. So publishers, when they are starting out or they've moved publisher, they're starting a new imprint, it's a really good time just to find out what they're planning.
Yeah. And for people listening to this episode or watching this episode, who are wanting to know, what's the best way to get an agent, to pitch something and have something which they, I think is a good idea. There's obviously the standard application way, which is send out your synopsis and your chapters and your letter, and then wait a few months and etc. But there's other ways you can contact agents, and other ways that you can get your work in front of an agent. There's pitch meetings, etc. And I wonder if you could chat about other ways which you've maybe acquired clients through with the normal way.
One of my favourite ways has been the what was the Expo North tweet pitch, which was, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but for at least 10 years with Expo North, which is the Highlands and Islands creative industries arm, with the Scottish Agents Association, we did a New Year tweet pitch. So it was a Friday into January. And we invited authors anywhere in Scotland just to pitch their ideas in a tweet. And latterly, we've had advice sessions on Zoom to sort of, to give people ideas about what constitutes a good pitch on Twitter. And I have taken on a few writers from that. One was just how many characters was it? 280 characters, wasn't it?
Yeah.
At one point. Yeah. And it was a writer called Esther Rutter, and she had This Golden Fleece, A Very British History of Wool. And I thought, that sounds interesting. So I got in touch with her, said I liked it. Lots of other people liked it. And so it's a great collaborative, collegiate kind of event, because so many people are watching and being really generous in their responses to this tweet pitch. We were trending on Twitter quite a few years because so many people were taking part. Anyway, brilliant. So I got in touch with Esther. She didn't actually have any manuscript, but she had the idea. But by the London Book Fair, which is a few months later, we had a pitch and we had an auction for it. And then it became a lead title for Granta. That was a non-fiction pitch, but quite a few novels have been successfully pitched as well through the New Year tweet pitch. Of course, Twitter became X, and last year it went on to Blue Sky. I hope it'll happen again this time, because it's a lovely way, because you don't need to know anybody.
And
you don't need to feel I'm out of Hebrides. I don't know anybody in publishing. It just it makes it a level playing field, and that was one of the very attractive things about it.
And it's very
and
easy,
then,
isn't it? It's very you're just putting up. I guess the hardest part is coming up with that kind of grabby tagline for it, or something which can fit in the characters. But that's apart from that, you don't need to do the whole process of synopsis, cover letter, blah blah. You can just sort of grab them with a 1-2 line thing, and that's quite exciting. Yeah.
So we had all the Scottish agents took part in it, and lots of the Scottish publishers as well. So quite a few books have been published as a result of that.
Nice,
excellent.
And then, of course, there's the Bloody Scotland Pitch Perfect competition, which has been going since the very first Bloody Scotland, and I've loved chairing that event since its beginning. And that again is, well, Marky, you'll be able to talk about this.
Yes, indeed.
But a great way of new entrants to the field pitching their work in front of a panel and getting instant response.
Yeah.
And there's been a huge success rate from that.
Yeah,
I think
which I hope you're taking. Yes.
Yeah, the last one is 25 published books since in terms of everyone that's got to the final. So it's a great event. We've talked about it before in the podcast, for 100 words, at least initially, that's what you're entering in. You get this chance potentially to then pitch it in front of an audience, but also the professional people there as well. So it is a great great opportunity. And like you say, Tarek, these things are can be invaluable for helping you sort of stand out from the crowd. And it is very difficult with virtual slush piles and agents' inbox. Agents are getting hundreds, if not thousands, of queries a week and stuff like that. So these sorts of events, whether it's the Twitter one or Pitch Perfect or similar events, are I think a legitimate way to another way in to try and find someone. I think. So
with the Pitch Perfect, let's just say that I am one of the sifters for it, as is Lynn Anderson, who's who is a co-founder of Bloody Scotland. But we have we invite past Pitch Perfect winners, watch out, Marco, to help us sift, so that there's a different consensus of opinion each year of people choosing from the many people who send us their 100-word pitch.
Yeah,
no, that's great.
And it's also
those
great
festivals. Oh, sorry, Tarek.
No, please go for it.
No, I think festivals in general, if they're accessible to new writers, are a brilliant way of making connections with agents, with publishers, hearing what's, that there's often industry events at festivals. And if you can go to those and just get a sense of what's going, who's interested in what, and meeting people, publishers and agents.
Would you if you're at a festival and you've been chatting to a writer who's looking for an agent, obviously I mean, imagine you wouldn't want that person to start trying to pitch you in the bar there and then, but I'd imagine if they were to submit to you later and say, we met and we chatted to Bloody Scotland, it was even that kind of personal connection, does that give them a bit of a leg up in terms of
absolutely
reading it,
just be able to make that sort of connection, or if they've met if they met you, Tarek, at the festival, and this say Tarek suggested I get in touch, thought this might be that all helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything to stand out a little bit, just to get ahead.
But I do understand that if you don't have access, if you can't go to the festivals, and the many events, although there, obviously there's festivals all over Scotland now, you're going to have to go down the approach, the tried and tested, normal approach.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, we've talked about this as well, which is that obviously if you can't make these festivals, that's potentially a barrier. But at the same time, there are online spaces with writing communities, writers, that you can meet people. you can get to know writers on there who they may be able to suggest people and things like that. So there are other avenues open as well to people as well. So it's worth trying to explore everything. I wanted to ask briefly about the process once you've actually signed an author. I wondered, are you quite an editorial agent, or are you more signing them and then you view your main role as trying to pitch the book out there for people?
It's a real mixture. Some authors' work, I think, is it's gone through so many drafts. It's really polished by the time I see it, and may not need very much at all. Others, perhaps I'm commenting on 2 or 3 drafts before we submit, and there's a kind of balance, isn't there, between an author feeling almost exhausted by the editorial process before submission, because inevitably any editor at a publishing house is going to want to edit as well. So I try to sort of have that balance. And as I say, some people I just feel need a lot more in terms of editorial, and some very little.
Yeah. How do you know when a book is ready to go? Is there? Obviously, there's no easy formula, I'm sure. But how do you know internally this book is ready to go to publisher, and I know who I'm going to publish it to, or who I'm going to pitch it to? Sorry.
I don't know. This is where the sort of time thing comes in as well. Because I've maybe read it 3 times already, and you almost want to let it sit for a few weeks, and then read it freshly, and then think, yep, it's ready to go. But there's also, of course, the other thing is the calendar timing. There are good times to be submitting to a publisher, and actually, let's face it, agents as well. And there's times that aren't so not impossible, but more difficult. We're now getting to the end of the year. Publishers' attentions are very much, I would say, focused on what's happening in bookshops. Are people out there and buying? So I would not be submitting at this time.
Right.
I'll wait until January, till everybody's had a break, and a new year started, and then from then on until it's got London Book Fair in March, which is obviously a sort of really important time when lots of deals are done just beforehand or are just afterwards. And so the first half of the year is usually pretty good time to be submitting. Then it gets into July, getting holiday bidding, August, September, October. There's sort of, for big books, that could be, September can be good. People's get distracted then by Frankfurt Book Fair. And then, so first half of the year.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, these are the things that I think people, when you're first starting out, writing and going on this journey, I guess, you don't really appreciate all of that and the sort of cadence of these things, I guess, and how long things can actually take. And I think as an author, you can sometimes be, it can sometimes be, because obviously when your book is out there, whether it's for an agent or whether an agent has submitted to a publisher, you're in this sort of horrible limbo period of like not knowing anything. And I think understanding that there is this sort of cadence to things can help with that, I think, a little bit as well. So, good to cover that. I did want to ask a bit about the market, though. We've sort of briefly touched on it, but I mean, where do you think the market is at the moment? What trends do you think are growing? What trends do you think are dying out in terms of the publishing market?
After Frankfurt this year, the bookseller had a feature and saying, more or less, there are now 2 genres. There's romantasy and there's non-romantasy.
Right, okay.
As somebody who doesn't, I don't represent any romantasy. That has it's been huge. It's been absolutely massive. But there's a real sense that everything else has got squeezed as a result. I mean, it's shelf space in bookshops. They've made, obviously, big displays for romantasy, but they won't have so much space for other genres. Crime fiction, continues to sell really well. And as you were mentioning, historical fiction, perhaps it hasn't gone as well recently. Literary fiction has been difficult for quite a long time. There's a real sense that the five big publishers are looking for high concept, big books that they can really make a shout about, and the independents are picking up writers that perhaps have been let go by the big publishers. Debuts are always, it's difficult, but it's a very powerful position to be in. Because as a debut, you have no disappointing Nielsen BookScan. You are all potential. So that when I'm talking to new writers, I always say, make sure when you're going out with your first book, you're conscious that it's, this is a very potentially a really good position to be in. So is it going to be your best work? Of course, you're desperate to get published, but as a debut, you've got the potential for prizes and to be shiny and new.
It's quite funny because you often, I guess, don't really think about being the new person as a position of having that kind of strength, because you'd imagine, well, how can I compete with the established people? But actually, you're right. There is that kind of strength in being new and untested and potential, etc. That's quite interesting to know. And I mean, I've certainly seen, we've all seen authors who kind of rebrand themselves. We change genre a little bit and take on a new name and are seen as a debut author. Even if they're not specifically called that, it's very much
they're marketed as that.
They're marketed like that, exactly. So obviously there is like a strength in that.
And prizes are important. I mean, and to bring attention to books that might have got lost, and and giving fresh oxygen to a book that maybe has been out for a while, but to bring attention to readers and potential publishers in the future.
So I mean, is the to touch back on the romantasy part of it, is there no sign of that dying out in the next 6 to 12 months?
I think we all thought it was going to die out, but it seems to.
It seems like every year we think, oh, this will be the last year of it, and then it goes on for another year.
But, I mean, but it's is it the Twilight readers, the Harry Potter readers? They're growing up. This is what they're interested in, and thanks to TikTok, thanks to very clever marketing, it's getting readers of that sort of late teens, 20s into bookshops, and on the whole, this vast generalization, the readers of romantasy want to have the hardbacks, they want to have the series, and they're not buying them as ebooks or audiobooks. It's physical books, which is great for the book trade. So I mean, I think it's such a mixed picture at the moment, because sitting here in Edinburgh, it seems to be the bookshops are full. The any events you go to, I'm at, there's a huge readership, and they're willing to come out to events, and they're buying books afterwards. That picture, of course, isn't replicated throughout the whole country. If only it were.
No, that's fair. And in terms of Scottish writing as a whole, we, again, I suppose picking up on that point that you've just made there, we're very much in that scene. So it seems to us that it's still very vibrant. It still punches above its weight and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, do you think that is true in terms of the wider UK publishing market?
Yeah, I think that's. I think the figures, the the BookScan figures are bearing that out, that we are, as a nation, buying more books per capita than many other places in the UK. And publishers are aware of that. And they're also aware what a strong countrywide market it is. I always remember one bookseller saying that, in Edinburgh, he could sell books about Shetland or Orkney in a way that you couldn't necessarily do the same in places as, south of the border. There's that kind of national interest. But, we are also so lucky that we are a small enough nation that we can know each other, that we can be in touch with the independent booksellers, we can be in touch with libraries. It's, it's small enough for that. And I think that works to our advantage, and it works to the advantage of newer writers coming in, because there's such a generosity. My perspective would be there's such a generosity amongst from older established writers towards the newer ones.
Yeah,
no,
there's not that sort of sense of sort of get off my patch. I don't find that at all.
We've been going to Play Scotland Festival for the last 4 or 5 years, or whatever now, and that's always felt, and again that's very a slight cross section of the market, where we're a small sample size, etc. But it's always felt like a very collegiate, warm place. It never feels like it's competition or people are wanting to kind of step on other people's shoulders to get noticed, etc. It feels like everyone's just very happy to see the genre, and that's obviously just crime, but to see that genre in Scotland growing and still being strong every year, never fading away, which is nice.
Yeah. And the fact that you've got all these different levels of experience at Bloody Scotland. We've talked about Pitch Perfect, and I think Crime in the Spotlight's been a really successful element to introduce new writers to audiences. And then, of course, you've got the debut prize and the McIlvanney prize.
I think the last question I wanted to ask you about was the OBE, of course, which you got last year, which was very. I mean, that must have been a wonderful piece of news to get.
Yes, it was. It was. I impressed my children at last, and somehow we all managed to go to Buckingham Palace and to pick it up. And excellent. I was able to talk to. It was the Princess Royal who handed it over, who pinned the decoration on, and she had asked me something about Edinburgh Book Festival, so I told her about Bloody Scotland. I don't think she quite believed me.
Brilliant.
Well, actually, Tarek said that was the last question, but I've got one more, which is, if you could give one piece of advice to authors, that are looking for agents just now, what would that be?
Try to try to get an idea of who they are and what they're like, their lists. And you can do that just by, the website, by following them on social media. Quite a few new writers say, well, I've got nothing to say on social media. And you don't, of course, need to say anything. You can just, start by following people you're interested in. Read acknowledgements in other writers that you admire and see who their agents are. Just get that picture, just build up a picture. And then really, I would say, when you start to submit, really target, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 agents simultaneously. Keep good records. And as soon as you get a request for reading on for further chapters from one, that's your golden opportunity to go back to the others saying, I've got strong interest. I wonder where you are with my manuscript. Can I send more? Because obviously none of us want to miss out on something that other people are looking at, and it will just probably hurry things along a bit. A very practical bit of advice also is, because everything's on the whole submitted electronically now, my real advice would be to have your cover letter in the body of the email, and to put your attachments in Word. Sometimes I get my PDF. In my experience, almost everybody reads on Kindle, and it's so much easier if you've got a Word document. I mean, it sounds so trivial, but it's just to make things as easy as possible for whoever's reading it. And then the waiting game starts. Just keep really good records as well of who you've sent to. I used to have somebody in Hong Kong who would submit the same material to me every month. And every month I would have the same response saying, I'm sorry, this isn't for me, but good luck. Obviously, weren't keeping records.
There you go.
Yeah, listen to podcasts. Listen to podcasts like this with advice as well. There's there is lots of advice out there.
There is, yeah.
I think definitely. Nowadays there's plenty of places to find out that information. The very, very last thing that we do on the podcast is we asked our guests the same questions, and the first of which is, what was the last book that you read that you can tell us about?
I read There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was amazing. I didn't even know what a cuneiform was before I read it. But I found myself, last time I was in London, the power of this book was that I went to the British Museum and I went up to the top floor and I discovered what they are as a result of that. I mean, what an extraordinary imagination. What an amazing storyteller she is.
Yeah, she's fantastic, yeah.
What was your last book? Tarek, what was yours?
Oh, I read a proof of Katrina Ward's new book, which is out early next year, I think. Nowhere Burning, it's called, and it's really good. It's really kind of dark, kind of horror-y story about a man who a man who ran this place called Nowhere up in the hills in the US, the kind of ranch, and he's dead at the start, and it's kind of kids have taken over the ranch, and it's kind of like made me think of like the Manson family ranch or like Neverland, that kind of like abandoned theme parky place with ghosts of the memories of people who lived there and stuff. And it's a very, very strange, like all of our stuff, very odd, very strange, but very dark, very well written. Yeah, excellent.
She's really good.
Yeah.
What about you, Marco?
I'm trying to think what the last one I finished was. I'm currently reading King Sorrow by Joe Hill, which is just out, which is excellent. Really enjoying that, although it is a big 850-page tome. Yeah. So working my way through that, but no, it's really enjoyable at the moment. So yeah, I'm enjoying that one.
What about the last film you watched, Jenny? What was the last film you watched?
What was it? Oh, I saw the Coral.
Oh, Ray Fiennes.
Yes, Ray Fiennes.
I saw
being absolutely brilliant, looking immensely elegant as a conductor in the 1940s in Yorkshire.
Nice.
And last one, what about the last what TV show are you watching at the moment?
Like everybody else, I'm watching Cemetery Road on a Wednesday night. So I haven't seen the latest episode.
So I'm storing them up to watch. I like to binge these things. So I wait until the whole thing is out.
Yeah.
Well, it's a consolation prize now that Slow Horses has been.
Yes, exactly. That's
brilliant.
Yeah, because Slow Horses is it back? Is it coming back next year? They're doing another season of it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
next year.
Yeah, I think so.
No, because Mick Herron's success continues on the Apple TV. It's absolutely smashing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what a run! Fantastic,
brilliant. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Jenny. That was great.
Pleasure.
Well, thanks very much to Jenny for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed that chat. And, as you said at the start, lots of interesting stuff there about, the whole querying process and what she's looking for and what turns her off a query and all of that sort of stuff. But also always interesting when we get a chance to speak to these agents and editors about, what the current trends are, where they see the market going and things like that, because, they're at the coalface of these things. And it does, she said there's now essentially two genres, romantasy and not romantasy, which, is slightly depressing in some ways. Nothing against romantasy, but, you would prefer a more diverse market, I guess. But
yeah. It is funny. Every year, I think I'm still amazed at the juggernaut that romantasy is, and how it's funny because it's something which I don't really have an interest in. It's not really my kind of cup of tea, and so it's very easy for me not to even think about it. And I guess what's fed to me in my social medias, etc., and it's more to be is the more kind of crime thriller, sci-fi stuff, whatever. And then it was often I'm like, oh no, but romantasy is there, and it is huge, and I always am amazed. I'm like, oh, that's how big it is. It's just dominating the charts and dominating.
Yeah, I think a large part of it is because it has brought back this interest in hardbacks and spreages and all this sort of stuff.
For sure,
and obviously that's good for publishers because they get more money from these types of books. But it's like I say. Nothing against romantasy, but it would be good if the market was open to other books as well. And I'm sure the trends will change because that's always what happens. It's just it can be a bit of a jug, especially once, it's like an oil tanker. Once it's built up ahead of steam, it's much harder for it to turn and change into something else. So we will wait and see. But really appreciate Jenny taking the time to speak to us because we know she's extremely busy. But next week is the final in our series of industry episodes, this little run of industry episodes. Right. And we are speaking with someone who has, well, actually, I think she's worked as an author, an agent, and an editor.
Wow, what a finale. Next week we're chatting with the fantastic Kezia Lupo, who at the moment works for Macmillan Children's Books as commissioning editor, but that's a very new post she's just taken up. Previously she was an agent for 12 years. She worked at Donald Mass Agency in New York, so she was there for quite a while, and as you say, she's written books as well, so she's really run the whole gamut.
Yep.
Not gambit.
No,
my brain always says gambit. It's gamut. Yeah. What is a gamut?
I've no idea.
Is it a
it's something you run?
You run it. Yeah.
She's ran it. I actually don't know what the etymology of it is, but yeah.
But yeah, she's a lot of wonderful experience across a wide variety of areas. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still to record that episode, so we can't give you a sneak peek into what she says. But I know it will be an interesting episode because, like I say, she's got all of that experience. And although she worked for Donald Mass in New York, she herself is British, so she's got a good perspective, I think, on both the US market and the UK market as well. So that'll also be interesting because I know some of our audience was asking about that very specific thing. So hopefully that is one for you to tune into. If you've enjoyed today's episode, though, please do take the time to rate and review us in your favourite podcast app, as that helps us to continue to get great guests on the podcast. You can also follow and subscribe and all of these things on YouTube. Leave a comment as well. That also helps massively with the algorithm, which helps us get found and helps us, again, to get great guests on the podcast.
That's right. And if you want to get in touch, you can do so in a number of ways. As Marco says, leave a comment on the YouTube channel. Find us on social media. We're on all the good ones. Just search for @UKPage1 or drop us an email, which is podcast@rightgear.co.uk.
Yeah, but otherwise, have a great week and we'll speak to you next episode.
See you later.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening and join us for the next episode.
See you later.